You're listening to a portion of our conversation from episode 243, featuring the Jurassic Wire, with myself, Brad Jost, and co-host Aaron Beyer. If you want to hear the full conversation, download the full episode on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Today we discuss some of Colin Trevorrow's talking points from the Collider chat from San Diego Comic-Con at home. Then we debate CG versus animatronics. Which one's better? And then we talk about how digital extensions between CG and animatronics may be huge. Be sure to let us know what you think, and of course, we hope you enjoy it. I guess let's continue on with Colin, because he recently did a chat with Collider and a few other...
Happy Comic-Con.
Yeah, Comic-Con's out. Everybody's like, oh, I can't wait to get some Jurassic news. What? No. Why? Why would you get any Jurassic news out of Comic-Con? First off, Universal, I feel like, just despises Comic-Con.
They do.
Plus, this year it's all virtual, so like no incentive really to get too much out there. So,
well, you got to remember the Nedry figure that now apparently you can get in other places. The Nedry figure was a Comic-Con exclusive. Like the batch that we all pre-ordered from Entertainment Earth was the Comic-Con batch. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Colin did a chat with Collider and Robert Rodriguez, a director there, and Joseph Kosinski. So that was a pretty awesome conversation, I guess. So I didn't watch the whole thing, I'll be honest.
I watched a good chunk of it. It was interesting.
I was busy today, and then I heard nothing happened, so I didn't watch it.
I like that we do this monthly show about the monthly events, and we're pretty open about the fact that we just talk about it for like 2 hours prior to the show's
Well, here's the thing. Like, we can come in like with no idea, and we'll talk for 3 hours about Jurassic.
Yeah.
So pretty standard. But I will say, not dissing ourselves too much. We do have a lot of this stuff on our mind, despite the fact that this thing came out today. But
right.
We do have a lot of this stuff on our mind. So let's actually listen in quickly here, because I have a few things that I want to play. This first one is about them. I believe this is the one where they're resuming filming. So let's talk. Let's talk to Colin. Hey, Colin, what's going on with the filming?
Colin Trevorrow.
Yeah.
It was announced that we're going to be going back into production in a couple weeks on Jurassic World Dominion. So we had to stop, just like the rest of the world, and now. There's just a real sense of family and camaraderie amongst everyone who knows that we're going to really need to support each other to do what we're about to do. If you can imagine the challenge of making a movie like this in the first place, and I'm sure as if you saw the last movie, this is not just some people on an island anymore. It's a really large scale global epic story. With characters from the original Jurassic Park, all in major roles, and of course, Bryce and Chris, and so all of these people have come together in a really inspiring way. And we have Zooms together, and we have chat threads together as we try to get each other inspired and kind of riled up for what we need to attempt to do. And the biggest challenge for me is that we have tons of protocols and many layers of safety and protection for everybody, because that's obviously the top priority. But once all of that has been applied, it's still going to be a couple people in the center of a circle trying to make something feel real and honest. And so to find that in the context of all this, we may be the first ones out doing that. And so we'll certainly report back, but we definitely have the right team.
I think a lot of filmmakers wish they had a break in the middle of a shoot to allow them to look at what they had and to think about what they want to do in the future. You were shooting for almost a month. How has this hiatus maybe impacted your script or?
Oh, I guess I stopped it there. Let me pull that
your
back up.
action set pieces? Has it allowed you to look at what you had and what you wanted to do in a different way?
Man, I wish we all had that. I'm sure everyone agrees, the ability to just stop and think for a second about what you were doing, cut it together, make sure that, especially if you're trying something, really new, that what you believed would work is working. And we got to do that. And we didn't really change the script much, but we definitely were able to cut and go into.
All right. I feel like all this is like stuff that we've heard before. So we've kind of heard
totally.
that they haven't changed much and everything's all still the same, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, again, not too much new information there. It's kind. I feel like this is kind of like when we watched Cross Animal Talking, right? We're like everybody's in the chat, like, ooh, we're gonna get some good stuff about Jurassic World Dominion, and then nothing happened, right? So there was a little bit of stuff, but nothing really worth talking about
crazy,
too much.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, having worked on the last 2 Jurassic World movies, like, I will definitely say, and I'm definitely not breaking NDA saying this, that crew is professional. Like, they know.
How dare you say that?
I know. They know what they want. You'd be surprised. They know what they want, and like, they know what they want. They strive for it. They get it, and it happens like a well-oiled machine. That Jurassic franchise is well-oiled. Like, the final product is fantastic, and like, I feel like when I was working on it, there was no like just craziness going on. It was a dream to work on. So, that's not always the case with every single movie, right? I've heard, and I can actually talk about this one because I did not work on this movie, but I've heard just horror stories about working on, like, when Batman v Superman, or and like what Justice League was going to be. I've heard stories about how like those productions completely shifted, in the middle of production, right? And I didn't experience anything like that on the Jurassic World movies. And, I think that's just a testament to how much Universal lets Trevorrow and his team do what they want to do. They're pre-planners. These movies aren't made in the span of a year and a half. They're made in the course of 3 years. So like, the pre-planning that they do, and he'll talk a little bit more about some of the other techniques they're using, but like, the pre-planning they do on these movies, I think, shows in the final product for sure. So, they're fantastic.
Yeah. Next up here, he's going to be talking about potentially more animatronics. So, take it away, Colin.
It's cool to watch people do them, but I'm not necessarily looking to do it myself. We've actually gone more practical with every Jurassic movie we've made since the first one, and we have more animatronics in this one than we have in the previous 2. And the thing that I found, just especially in working in the past couple of months, is that we finally reached a point where it's possible to the digital extensions on animatronics will be able to match the texture and the level of fidelity that on film an animatronic is going to be able to bring. And you didn't used to be able to really mix them. Like, you could really see the seams. And so that part of it is very exciting for me. And also, just in the context of our stuff, J.A. Bayona really, he found the value in creating really photoreal, just beautiful lighting references that could be articulated just slightly, just a head and a jaw that could move, and the ability to, but painted beautifully, hand painted. And we do it for all of the dinosaurs now. So we put it into a space, you can see how the light, reacts to the skin, like, and even if they ultimately do make that, a digital animal, there was always something there, reacting to the light in that environment. That has proven to be just puppetry in general, really simple puppetry has proven to be amazing.
All right, so there's a
ton new there, but there's one juicy thing. I feel
like there's a few things in there. We have the fact that more animatronics. I think we've talked about that a bit here. More animatronics than the previous 2, right? So there was what? 1,
the Apatosaurus
2,
in the first one.
3, maybe 3 total.
Yeah.
You have the Apatosaurus. There was only 1 in Jurassic World, and then you have Blue in Fallen Kingdom.
On the vet bed, right?
Yep. And then you also had the Indoraptor, which didn't. actually make it into the film, but it was.
Well, you're missing a big one, bud.
Is there a big one?
Yeah, the T-Rex that Claire climbs
Oh,
on.
the T-Rex. Sorry, so there's 3 in that
Yeah.
movie, right? Is it 3?
Yeah.
And then so 4 total. So
Mhm.
is there 5? Is there 6? Is there 7? Like I'm really interested to know, but at least we know that there should be more than 4. Hopefully, he said more than the previous 2. So
More than. Okay,
you don't think it
fair.
was combined?
I thought he said
combined.
combined.
Did he not say combined?
He said
I don't remember.
more than the previous 2. So like.
Well, I
mean-
kind of take that as like there should be more than both of them.
Okay, fair. Again, you know what? We didn't talk about this prior to the show, but this is actually a fantastic time to bring this up.
Oh, what is it?
Like, why this love for animatronics? Like, why? Like, I don't get it. They look great. They do what they do in Jurassic Park to their what they need. They do what they need to do. They sway their head, they open their mouth, you know.
Yeah.
And in Jurassic Park they were filmed beautifully, right? And you can definitely tell the difference between CG and animatronic in that movie now. Back then we were kind of dumb, right? Maybe you couldn't, but like then The Lost World comes out and like Spielberg axes an entire stegosaur sequence with an animatronic stegosaur, right? The intro was supposed to have an animatronic, like adult-sized stegosaur. It got to set. It's documented. This thing got to set. Spielberg showed up, watched it move, and was like, no, we're just going to see this entire thing. So then Jurassic Park 3 comes out, and again, congrats Jurassic Park 3 for just being what you are. Those animatronics were shot so terribly. They moved awful. Like
some of them, not all of them, I think.
Man, dude, some of it, most of it was so incredibly bad. So like I did this conversation with you this month. It's like, why is everyone pro animatronics? Is it just simply that it's just to say that we built a dinosaur? Like, because like honestly, like
I don't know.
Anybody with a big enough budget can build a dinosaur, right? Like we saw Jurassic World Live Tour, we've seen the exhibition, we've seen built dinosaurs. And you made a good point in our conversation. You were like, yes, you can tell. I feel like you were saying like a CG dinosaur like never looks good or bad, but like when an animatronic dinosaur falls apart, it really falls apart or something like that. You had said something like along that. Those lines.
I might have said that too, but I think like the way I see it is you can tell a CG dinosaur is a CG dinosaur, and you can tell animatronic is an animatronic. So like
this is what you said, and I love
like
this.
Who cares? Like we know which one is which. Why are we fighting over it? It's not like one is better than the other or something like that. I just don't.
No,
I love that Colin.
Like,
go ahead.
When you said when you see a CG or when you see a animatronic dinosaur, you always know it's an animatronic dinosaur. But sometimes when you see a CG dinosaur, you can't tell. And so, like for me, the very first time that I was ever 100% tricked in this movie, I gotta be careful. The first time I was ever fully tricked was when I first saw the Indominus from under the car.
Yep, that's exactly the spot I was thinking. Yeah,
and that jaw, and like I remember going like, "Oh my gosh!" Like that animatronic is so incredibly good, and it was like CG. Yeah. And I could not believe it. It was the very first time I was ever just completely tricked, and like by the CG. And you know, for me, like Jurassic Park's CG, it's advancements in that thing. For me, that's like a life-changing thing. Like I literally do what I do because I want so badly to strive to achieve that. And so like when everyone's like, "Oh, animatronics," I'm like, okay, like sure, I guess, like get excited. But that's me personally, obviously. I'm like in the minority on that.
Sure. I do like the point that you brought up that I brought up. That is a good point because like
I'm glad I could quote a very good quote of yours.
You can you can get fooled by the CG. Like that moment is something that I'll watch still today and be like, how is that not real? How is that not real? Like
I think the Carnotaur roaring by the gyrosphere in Gyrosphere Valley, I think that is real to me.
Yeah, like when its eye comes up in there, how is that not real? Like, it's so nuts, dude.
Yeah, dude,
it's so nuts.
It's crazy. But anyway, to your point though, like you can tell when an animatronic is an animatronic because it's always going to have that weird motion, that simple motion. I shouldn't say weird motion. It's always going to do simple things. You're never going to see this animatronic running through a field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and even when you see them moving like you do in Jurassic World Live Tour, it's just a lumbering, like, back and forth, kind of slow, you know, and it looks awesome. It's very, very impressive, but it's not the moment in Fallen Kingdom where the T-Rex is, like you said, it's picking up a truck, it's smashing its way through. It's not doing that. So animatronic can't do that. Why do we care so much about the animatronic? I don't know. I just think maybe because it's more believable in a lot of people's eyes. I don't know though. I really don't know what it is. And I still see it constantly that it's like, why are we not making more animatronics? And you know, the CG looks so bad these days. I'm like, what are you talking about? Rewatch Jurassic Park because it's the best prime example. And I just watched it the other night. All right. And I paid attention to all these details. The CG most of the time looks pretty bad these days.
I mean, it's not. I'm not gonna say it's bad. It's not on par with today.
It looks weird. It just looks weird, man. Like the Brachiosaurus looks pretty bad. I gotta say, it does not look very good. And
Brachiosaurus is, by today's standards, it's a low polygon model.
Yeah,
and it basically has one texture map on. I'm not going to go super nerdy, but it basically has a bump map. It's essentially in the computer, it's just a trick. But if you look at the edges of that model, the edges of that model don't actually bump in where you think it's being bumped in. And you can see this in video games all the time, right? Like if you look at the edge, a bump map is essentially it's a lighting trick in the computer, but it doesn't actually deform the model in any way to give it that wrinkle, right? We're getting to the point in the last like 10 years, we can actually model in those wrinkles and render those full on, you know, like no problem. I myself am going through a renaissance in like my modeling, and because I used to really badly want to be a 3D modeler until, dude, can you believe it? I'm so mad. When I was in school in 2009, all I would do is sit there and model like CG dinosaurs, and my professors were like, you need to like not do this because like you got to do something other than dinosaurs. And so I stopped. And man, dude, if I would have gotten really good, I could be working on CG models for Jurassic World. Like I had potential, man. Like I'm not like trying to like toot my own horn. Like I had promise. You know, like I could have done it, man. I just would have done nothing but sit there and model dinosaurs.
Well, I don't doubt that, man. I think I've seen your work. You know, it's pretty awesome. So keep going. Keep at it, dude.
You know, the CG versus animatronic argument. I mean, if you want to take some time and Google like mistreatment of like VFX artists, or like Google like, you know, the CG conspiracy of like how Hollywood treats its VFX artists, like in being in that industry, I kind of can see a reason for the argument that a lot of CG artists have is that studios downplay the CG even in movies that are full blown like Transformers or something like that, right? Where like you have to have CG, right? The argument that a lot of CG artists make is that Hollywood downplays the specialness of CG or the amazing things that CG can do, because when Hollywood admits that they have to have CG, then that's all of a sudden like when CG people can start asking for like way more money and bids can like start going up. But like a lot of like this industry, because like you'll notice in the 90s, it was very much like, look at CG, look what it can do, look how great it is, look how amazing it is. And budgets for these movies just got like crazy big. And then what a lot of VFX artists feel is that like by downplaying how much you need of CG, or by downplaying how important CG is, you can basically, the studio like Universal or Disney or whatever can go to a vendor and be like, I mean, you're not that important. We have a whole other company vendor over here that's willing to do it for like half this price.
Sure.
Right. And you can you can look up things like the studio of Life of Pi that went out of business like right after the movie like came out. There's all these things that you can Google and look around for, and if you're interested in the industry, I think you should. But
yeah,
I don't. That's my rant. I guess I don't even know where I was.
What
going
were we
with
talking
that.
about? Animatronics.
I was just trying to basically trying to say
sure.
like let's not downplay how amazing the CG looks in a modern Jurassic movie.
Yeah.
Like it's phenomenal.
And speaking of the animatronic in Jurassic Park, that was another thing that I was looking at, like the T-Rex. You can clearly see it jittering throughout that whole rain sequence. Like,
yeah,
it's just clearly jittering, and that is something that takes me out of the moment. It doesn't take me out of it where I'm like, this movie sucks. It takes me out of it where I'm like, oh, I see it jittering. And now I remember that it's an animatronic, that it's not real. You know, so I think both CG and animatronics both do that to me at times. You know, there's moments in Fallen Kingdom where I see blue and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't look very good. But there's also moments where I see the Indoraptor and I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy cool. Or the Carnotaurus where I'm like, oh my God. So it happens both ways, and it doesn't really need to be one or the other. So
now this actually leads me to the next topic, or the next part of his statement. And no one's talking about this.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to you this before. No one's talking about this. He said, for the first time ever, we're going to be able to have character extensions. What? That means, Brad, like, I want you to think of like a movie where like maybe someone is like climbing to the top of a pyramid, right?
Okay. Picturing it. Pyramid.
Okay. And like
pyramid.
The part that the person is touching, right? They may have only built the top, like, I don't know, 1/8 of that pyramid, right? Mm-hmm. But then because of the way the bricks are done, there's tracking markers, right all over the place. They can basically take a live person climbing on top of a pyramid, right? And then they can like add the entire base of the pyramid. They can add Egyptian statues. They can add a desert in the background. They can have the camera spin around it because the person and the tip of the pyramid is real. There's tracking markers. So now we can lay out like where all the CG stuff is going, right?
So explain how this is different though than the Apatosaurus too.
So what I'm trying to tell you is that's considered a set extension, right? They have taken the set, which is the very tip of this pyramid, and they have digitally extended it, right? And what he basically just said was that we're going to be able to have character extensions, which is essentially you could have the torso of an animatronic, but CG legs blended into it. You could have the outside of the mouth when like back in the Jurassic World when the Indominus roars and opens its mouth, right? The whole thing is CG. They could essentially have an animal that opens its mouth, but the inside is all CG, right? Like this is never, to my knowledge, this has never been done like this on a Jurassic World movie or a Jurassic Park movie in general. Now, Jurassic Park 3 touted the fact that they would have CG and animatronics in the same shot. And I think that's an important milestone. That's not something that we should necessarily, turn our noses up at. Like for all the crap that I give JP3, right? It did give us that. It did give us a CG animal and an animatronic animal not off to each other in the same shot. Now, what you're talking about with Jurassic World, like how is it different from the Apatosaurus? It's different in the sense that like,
is it just fully being painted over in a way where that original animatronic doesn't exist anymore? Or because I feel that's what happened with the Indoraptor, right? Like they filmed some stuff with a head and stuff for the Indoraptor, and then what you see in the movie and the arm and whatnot, it's not actually that anymore.
I mean, I would suppose, and I'm definitely not speaking about anything I've ever seen, right? I guess like in theory, like when you look at like maybe like de-aging or something like that in these movies, or I'm being very careful when you talk about like de-aging in these movies or like replacing a thing. More like, okay, replacing a thing, right? Like, okay, so you have the light. Let's say you have the lighting reference. He talks about like lighting references in that he used on Fallen Kingdom, right? Like, okay, you put the puppet in the scene, you film it in the scene, and then just over it, like, because literally, basic compositing, A over B, right? You put CG dinosaur literally over puppet dinosaur, and now all of a sudden, I wouldn't even necessarily say that's a blend. That's literally just replacing one with the other.
Yeah.
This to me sounds very much like, and I'm going to use a very bad example, and I don't want anyone to get worried because there are actually fantastic examples of this working, but I can talk about this movie because I didn't work on it. When you look at the jaw changes for Henry Cavill in Justice League, right? He actually is a character extension. They basically took his clips of him talking, and then they 3D modeled and put in a CG face, and then they kind of like blended the two, right? So it's like CG Henry Cavill goes over live action Henry Cavill. I'm like working this out in my mind. And then like you basically like, blend the two together by saying like, okay, reveal live action Henry Cavill on top and keep CG Henry Cavill like on the bottom, like in the jaw part, right? So that technically is a character extension. It's not a good example of one.
Not very good, no.
No,
it's like the worst possible one.
The Irishman was like character extensions where like they de-aged wow, I'm blanking on
Robert
his name.
De Niro.
They like de-age Robert De Niro, and then like they use like a 3D model of him to like for that de-aging effect.
Also, just looked like a 60-year-old guy, or however old he is, 76,
right,
kicking other people. So it didn't. It worked, but like also just looked like an 80-year-old guy, or however old he is.
But wasn't he supposed to be younger in that film?
Yeah. I mean, in the moment where he's de-aged, he's supposed to be like 30 or something. But just his mannerisms and everything about him just felt 80. Like you can't fake that.
No. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like
the thing that he makes
that announcing is new, and if he's saying like, "Hey, it's
indistinguishable,"
really good,
yeah.
I say it all the time. In Colin, I trust. So like, if he's saying it's amazing, it's really good, I don't think that Colin would say, "Yeah, let's just do this to be new," right? If he's seen the proof, if he's seen that it can work, then I'm really excited for this, for what is truly going to be an animatronic CG hybrid.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what he means there, and I can't wait to see if it's like a blend of the two and just see them, like you're saying, like a tail or something that's real, or a face that's real and a tail that's whipping around, or whatever it is. If it's an upper half and then maybe running legs or something, like you could do anything like that.
Like I kind of mentioned to you before, like think of that shot where you're in the Lost World, where you're looking from Jeff Goldblum's perspective and you see a velociraptor coming through the window, right? And the way that shot works is that you see the head of the raptor, the torso of the raptor, and then we've seen behind the scenes where that's all it is. It's the chest cavity, the neck, and the head of the raptor. And then like 4 feet back, they've got a tail on a stand, like wagging back and forth, right? Now, there's no reason, if he's saying that there's these hybrid character animatronic, I don't know what to call it, because you can't, it's a hybrid character, I guess. Now that you have this hybrid character, you don't have to do the camera trickery anymore. Like you don't have to like angle your camera a specific way. If you notice in that shot, that camera is locked, because if the camera moves to the left or to the right in any way, you're going to reveal a giant gap between the two animatronics it takes to make up that shot, right?
Yeah.
But what they're saying now is like, if you have that shot, you now can actually swing the camera, because now we're gonna at the chest cavity, we're gonna add a half a digital dinosaur to the front of this animatronic. Like, that's awesome. I can't wait to see it. God, I hope it looks better than Henry Cavill in Justice League.
Hopefully. I mean, hopefully Henry Cavill looks better than Henry Cavill in the next iteration.
He's building PCs, man. Henry Cavill's building them PCs.
Oh my God, yeah, that was amazing. That making the rounds the other day. That was awesome. Yeah. And our last thing from Colin is about some characters reprising their roles. So
recently, with with
Here
the
it
actors in Dominion with, it's these legends. It's Laura Dern and Sam Neill and
Wait,
Jeff
they're in this
Goldblum,
movie?
The last time they played these roles, they were directed by Steven Spielberg. And
I need a graphic
and
exclusive.
they know that I exist, but they want to know my heart. And so I think making sure that they're going to trust you the way that they trusted somebody like that, it's a little nerve-wracking.
It's getting Bruce Willis in Sin City.
Oh, well, Bruce Willis in Sin City. That was the, I don't know. But yeah, they're back, and he's excited to work with them. Again, not much coming out of this, aside from what we just talked about.
Not much, but he does make a good point. Like, these are iconic characters, and again, like, I think Colin definitely recognizes, I think, that Jurassic World put him on the map. But again, like you said,
Sure.
What has he done outside of Jurassic World that's been like a massive success? I mean, look, when you're someone like Laura Dern or Sam Neill or Jeff Goldblum and you're early to mid in your career, right? Working with Spielberg is a no-brainer, right? You don't question that. You know, you get the call, hey, Steven thinks you'd be good for this mathematician role. Of course. Like, of course you go on that audition or just take the offer, right? But like, Colin Trevorrow does have, I think, something to prove, and I don't, he doesn't have that what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't have that I guess I'll say real. That's not the word I'm looking for, but he doesn't have that prestige that Spielberg has.
Yeah.
Right. So, hey, come reprise your classic roles. Come do it from me, a guy who basically has Jurassic World and some indie films under his belt, and I will try not to ruin your characters. Right. That's a big ask, I think, to come back. So it's cool that he recognizes that, and I'm excited to see what they do. Although he did say this is a global movie. Do you think that these characters never interact with Owen and Claire?
I think they have. I think they do.
I think they do. Right? Like, that's what everyone wants to see, right?
Yeah, my worry is that the big three don't fully interact themselves. Is that possible? Like a Star Wars way? Well,
I would say after the long running Star Wars where they don't interact with each other, I don't think that happens.
Yeah. I know that was a big issue with Star Wars fans, was the fact that Luke, Han, and Leia never got together.
They're not in a single scene together, right?
No, I mean, there's moments where each of them see each other, except for Han and Luke. It's
they weren't
kind of
part
a bummer.
Of the adventure, right? Like,
no, but at least if everybody's together, you got Ellie, you got Malcolm, and you got Grant all in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. That's all we can ask for.
What Trevorrow said when he first took over Jurassic World was like, this movie is not about the same three characters over and over again. And I thought that was a great perspective. I was like, yes, you're right. This Jurassic World should be about the world and should be about different characters. But as we get to this point in the trilogy, fine, we already have them announced. Like, let's marry the two franchises and be like,
please,
yeah, right. Like, let's marry the two franchises and let's agree that, yes, while this story is global and it is like, over the entirety of the world, let's marry the franchises by saying, but everyone matters. Everything is together. Like, I love that. I think like Lowry's back, and
Barry
is back, and
other people.
Like, I'm not even opposed to someone like, I was talking to Jack Ewens today about the original like Jurassic Park 3 novelizations and stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess like in one of the books, Eric Kirby is actually famous because he's the kid who survived like the island or something like that. And so like when he gets back, he's kind of got that fame to him. And honestly, like, that doesn't even bother me. Like, I'm fine if like somehow Eric Kirby is referenced or even cameos. I don't need him throughout the whole thing. He's not a big three, all right? But like, I don't mind if some of those characters even were to be like a part of this story in some small way.
Yeah. I keep them all coming. Keep more and more. I'd be totally open to seeing everybody return. But yeah, again, not a ton of news coming out of